Hi, my name is Carol, and today I'm investigating the multi-state outbreak of Salmonella Schwartzengren infections linked to dry pet food. So, Salmonella is a bacterial illness that resides in the intestines of humans and many animals. And some people are asymptomatic, meaning they don't really experience any of the symptoms, but others experience diarrhea, fevers, abdominal cramps within 8 to 72 hours of exposure. Salmonella Schwartzengren infections emerged in response to dry pet food made by Mars Pet Care in the US. And it was traced down to a single manufacturing facility in Pennsylvania, but it also spread to other states because it was dispersed to different um, pet stores. And in September 2007, there were 62 cases, which is 18 states, reported to the CDC, and no deaths were reported. 62% of infected people were pet owners or were in contact with a dog. So the current situation is that the Salmonella Schwartzengren infections are linked to dry pet food. So if you handle the food or the treats or the animals that consume it, then you have the possibility of contracting the illness. And the strength of this situation was that there were multi-state case control studies that were performed for households infected by the outbreak strain. And a weakness was that the contaminated dog food had already been dispersed all over the country, so it was hard to track and locate which households actually had the dog food. And an opportunity was that many pet owners had the opportunity to recall the contaminated dog food, and they had to, if they had any of the two brands, and they were able to recall it. And a threat was that the recall was voluntary, so not all of the contaminated bags were eradicated. So this allows for the possibility of actually contracting the illness, even though they had the option to recall it. And the mission statement, which was from the CDC, the PADOH, and the FDA, was to investigate the multi-state outbreak of the Salmonella virus or the Salmonella infection in humans. And this includes informing the owners of the situation and also halting the further production from the pet food company responsible. So the core issue was that the transmission of the Salmonella infection occurs from the exposure of contaminated food and also the pets who consume the food or touching the feces of the animals who consume the food. And the infection doesn't affect the animals necessarily, but humans who are in contact with the animals have it. And the infected individuals usually experience diarrhea, fevers, or abdominal cramps. And also in severe cases, they may have to go to a hospital or they may die. And in 2007, there were a total of 70 cases of the Salmonella Schwartzengren infection, and 48% of them were children aged 22 years or younger. And it's crucial to prioritize the health of those who are susceptible to severe symptoms. So this includes children, the elderly, or those who are more vulnerable to the effects of the illness. So the alternatives, Mars Pet Care announced a voluntary recall of selected contaminated bags. There were investigations by different departments that examined the dog food products for the salmonella. So they brought it to a laboratory and investigated if they had the illness or if they had salmonella in them. And the FDA promoted tips for safe handling of pet foods and treats to reduce the possibility of health risk. And the social ecological model was to promote proper handling of food and other sanitary measures. So this includes washing your hands before and after handling the product. And the first approach is to enforce stricter regulations of the production of dog food, so like sanitizing the equipment, testing the product before selling it, and other approaches. And then the second approach is to take pets who already consume the dog food for a checkup, and if they have the salmonella illness, then they should get a treatment. So recommendations. The first recommendation is for pet owners to follow the FDA's tips for safe handling of pet food and treats. So this includes washing your hands with warm water and soap for at least 20 seconds before and after handling dog food. And the second one is that children should be kept away from dry dog food, so they shouldn't be able to handle it at all. In this action plan, that I created involves the cooperation of every individual who play or can play a part in the spread of Salmonella. So this includes pet owners, children from these households, pet food companies, and public health departments. So this is a course of 5 years. So the first 2 years, all the contaminated products that have been sold to households should be recalled. And pet owners should be educated about safe handling. So this can come in forms of different media to spread awareness and promote safe practices. And pet owners are also encouraged to take their pets for checkup and treatment. In the next 2 years, companies should be held responsible for any damages that they have caused, and stricter policies must also be held about the oversight of pet food. So this includes having extra sanitation, larger surveillance of dispersal, and more laboratory samples to check for salmonella. And my opinion is that many people were responsible for the spread of this salmonella infection, and the pet care did not receive adequate punishment, and that pet owners should have already practiced safe handling, and that wouldn't have caused their children to have gotten it too.